Yeah, there's a great clip, I think it's of the Today Show in the late 90s, and it's all the hosts sitting around and they say, "What is internet?" And you look back now and it looks like they're just being ignorant of the technology, but at the time, no one saw the potential for it. And you had to use analogies, and this was even present in the user interfaces. If you look back at the early iPhone in 2009, the notepad was not all clean. You had little lines to show you that you could put notes in this application. So we had user interfaces to display exactly what these applications were doing. I think we need some of that in blockchain. Now, if you ask me to explain it to you in half an hour, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out Venmo. Venmo is an application that a lot of people have used, and it demonstrates, well, a public ledger, right? If I send you $5, it's going to be on the public ledger. From there, you can actually show them how that would work on the Bitcoin blockchain. So I can send you a Bitcoin, and we can actually go into the public block explorer and see that on a public ledger. From there, I think you can start to explain hashing and some of the more complicated mechanisms, like some of the stuff Ethereum's doing. But I think you have to start from the bottom and go up. And I think over time, as we develop these user interfaces, people are going to stop asking, what is blockchain, the way they were asking, what is internet?
I think one of the problems, not problems, but the situations in the space is there's too much information. It's not a lack of information. It's like you're hungry, you walk into a room full of food, and you don't know what to choose. You don't know what is, which information is bad, which information is false, which, what is good and what is bad. So I think what we do is, we try to tailor the best best we can to give you what you need. A food with protein, with vitamin, with fiber. So our approach is we follow the people. We follow like people like you, the entrepreneurs and investors and really thought leaders in the space. We want to tell the stories to the normal people, and we want to show them the tech. So we're coming from the television background, so it's easier to use visual to tell the story. To like Jake just said, like we just want to show them what is happening in the space, and then we follow the money, like Ren did. So we look at the data, we look at what is the correlation between different the fundamentals. So we try to pick up the best information, like the easier information for people to understand. It's pretty much like CNBC is doing for stock market, right? They dumb it down so that the general public can understand what is happening in the financial markets. So that is what I felt that we need to work on in the blockchain space.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an educational process for people to understand this. It's just cool, like all of us being in media, we have to have some kind of really short, concise explanation for people. It's like digital money. Well, how is it worth something? Well, it's worth something because you say it's worth something, right? There's got to be something that people can get and kind of grab onto, and then that kind of leads into the next thing, which is like a lot of people think that crypto's a scam, right? So Jake, with your background in in cyber, in tech, also with CCN, I mean, you hear people all the time saying crypto, it isn't safe. It's not, it's volatile. It's not stable. How do you, defend, or how do you, I guess agree with these people? What do you tell them?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of crypto because they don't understand it. And what I would say to them is pull out your phone, pull out your United Mileage Plus app. You really have no control over the rewards, the price, anything. And the reason I like to use that analogy is it's something people are comfortable with and have used before, but doesn't have absolute value. So I can go on right now, book a trip home to Newark for 10,000 miles, right? That's not fiat currency. This is a whole new currency invented by a centralized company. Now, United is a public company, and they have a fiduciary obligation to their shareholders. So tomorrow, they can go ahead and just say, okay, we're going to throw out 100,000 new rewards points, and that flight is going to be 100,000 miles. Are you really going to trust that less than you would trust Bitcoin and this decentralized thing that people all over the world are putting money into? And I think that's really the best response to, like I said before, relate it to something they know and go from there in explaining the value of the technology.
Very cool. Anybody have anything you want to add to it? Cool. So Rand,
I think as the media, specifically in crypto, we have an obligation to report as many of the scams as possible. Now, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you want to portray the space in as positive a way as you possibly can. I struggle with this all the time. On the one hand, you want to portray the space as a very positive, investor-friendly space because we've all drank the Kool-Aid. But on the other hand, you have an obligation to report as many of the scams as possible. Now, in my line of work, I see a hell of a lot of scams, and you know, one of the programs that I actually wanted to create, and it's actually a program that's in the pipeline, is a program called Crypto Scam. And all it is just reporting all the different types of scams that can happen in crypto. And you know, I think as much as we have an obligation in the media to report the growth of the asset, we should report the negativity, because we need to educate people about the negative part of this industry so that they can learn and protect themselves. And this in particular, because we're in an unregulated industry, and we're not doing a very good job at regulating ourselves. And so one of the ideas is to actually educate slightly more astute investors about where they can get burnt in crypto.
I think I agree with Rand, and you know, media should play its own role, like the fourth estate, right? So you call out the bad actors, and you, besides from educating the general public, but you become the guardian, right? The guardian of the general public and the interests of the public. But there is one problem here. You know, media is suffering. They don't earn money, right? So if people don't, I know that like a lot of people complain about pay to play, but a lot of YouTubers, you know,
So
I never.
you know, there's the business model has, you know, needs to improve, because, and then if they don't get the money from the sponsorship from those projects, well, I'm not saying this is good. I'm just like stating the obvious.
I think that you've opened up a can of worms, which which really
Exactly.
talks to what the title is of this panel, the future of media and entertainment. Now, if you look at media today, media is probably the most boring industry in the whole wide world that has worked the same way for many years and needs to be disrupted. Media today works where you find a sponsor, the sponsor pays for the programming, and then we use that money to go and procure content. Blockchain has given us a way to disrupt media by getting people to pay per play every time they watch media. So I think that the future of media and entertainment has been completely disrupted by the blockchain. We haven't felt it yet because there aren't enough platforms today which reward users and viewers for good entertainment, things like Steam It or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's one, and it's not mainstream enough. I think that the future, because of blockchain, the entire future of media has been put onto an equilibrium where the more your viewers, consumers, etc. enjoy your content, the more money you will get to make more content.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like Steam It, and really giving back the power to you know, the content makers and the creators themselves, and not to the centralized platform, right? So right now we are not seeing it yet because the adoption is not happening yet, and Steam It, if you any one of you uses it, it's really difficult to, you know, like to navigate and everything. So we are still in between this gap right now, but the future is happening. I agree.
If I could add to that,
Sure.
I think, as you know, being in the media industry and entertainment, I think we have a responsibility, and also I feel like we're in the best position to bring mass adoption to blockchain type technologies, because traditionally blockchain technologies are normally in the financial realm. The fact that media is something that is acceptable to the general consumer, I think that we're in the best position to really drive that adoption. And going back a little bit just on some of the security and some of that, I think, you know, as far as being our own media and entertainment company ourselves, we develop a private off-chain solution which helps mitigate some of the issues with the blockchain. Not just the transactional rate and things like that, but like we were pointing to before, on the blockchain there's no customer service. It's not forgiving if you make a mistake. So I think those intermediary or gateways or private chains, side chains, they offer the opportunity to projects to have a little bit more censorship or control in those areas. And I know that kind of goes against decentralization in a lot of ways, but when you're talking about a platform, like for example in our case, you need those types of things until we have some solutions on the blockchain to deal with those.
Exactly. I mean, you look at like YouTube, it disrupted basically TV, kind of like Netflix a little bit, right? Then you've got things like, Facebook, which is kind of disrupting things like traditional press. What we need now are things in blockchain that disrupt those, that allow everybody, to get their own content out, right? And to where it's not being, centrally controlled, but has a layer of customer service there, right? So, and then Rand, with, your extensive, investment, experience, your media, your tech savvy, all that good stuff, you see things, especially through all your interviews and, being in the space. Where do you think like the biggest opportunities lie right now for like crypto projects in general to become, fruitful, right? So like if you had to pick a space out there, where do you think it's like, if they entered into this space, they would do great? And then how would you market that?
So, I mean, what you're asking is a very broad, a very vague question. Last year, I would have said the biggest opportunity in crypto is to create a good protocol which can scale, and we've seen protocols like EOS, Quarkchain, Thunder, etc. So now I think we're all protocoled out. Then last year, I would have said, let's build on-ramps and off-ramps and places for consumers to store their crypto. So that being exchanges, wallets, etc., etc. Now that we don't have enough, but we've already got on that trajectory of building good enough wallets. The problem is that we have to bring users to this place that we call crypto. So you look at the models that we've adopted as crypto people, and we probably adopted it right in hindsight. First we built the protocols, then we built these exchanges, which in the Mt. Gox days were kind of really unusable. Then we made the exchanges a little bit more usable. Then we created a whole lot of wallets, which is kind of like where we're at today. So I think if I were putting my money into crypto, I'd look at 2 entry points into crypto. The first thing is, the winner of the blockchain space is the person that has the most wallets. And you can see things like CZ or Binance investing into Trust Wallet, or buying out Trust Wallet, etc. The owner of the wallet, the company that has the most wallets out there, is going to be the biggest financial services business in the world. And today I haven't seen a wallet that can store multiple coins and allow users to transact very quickly. So once we've got the wallet play out of the way, then the next thing is we need to bring users into our ecosystem. And this approach that we've got of bringing users into our ecosystem by telling them, buy Bitcoin, speculate, prices are going to go up, that approach I think has kind of reached a saturation point. And you can see that if you look at the Coinbase numbers or the Binance numbers or all the numbers which are published, the user adoption or attraction in this bear market has slowed down to a complete halt. So how do we bring new users into our ecosystem? We find real world businesses that have hundreds of millions of users, and we give them a wallet and we get them to start transacting without them knowing that they're transacting. So in that spirit, when you look at a project like the Telegram project, which is launching next year, Telegram has 180, 200 million, 300 million users. Nobody knows exactly the number of users. But that is automatically 300 million wallets coming into crypto. And there are many other industries. I mean, I'm working on a project in the sports betting industry where this company has 250 million users. And with one switch of a button, we're going to deploy 250 million crypto wallets, one to each user. And also we're going to tell them that the only way they can bet from now on is if they activate this crypto wallet. So once we've got the protocols and the wallets, now the idea is to bring users. And instead of running around waving a flag, which is the approach that we've used up until now, we should actually go to companies that have users and migrate those companies onto the blockchain and give them blockchain applications.
Gotcha. Anybody want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I think one great example of that is actually Kik with their Kinit project. So they have a pretty big existing user base that they've been able to deploy blockchain wallets out to. And I was just pretty critical of them in the beginning because I didn't really see a business model. But I think I've now changed my mind to where I think the most important thing is getting users on wallets and having them start to understand the concept of crypto. The other low-hanging fruit as far as adoption, I think, is actually in the enterprise space. So you have companies like Splunk that are ingesting petabytes of data a day. And this data is relatively sensitive. So maybe you have server access logs And you need to ensure that this data has high integrity. So you do a simple check-in with Ethereum. I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit like that in the enterprise space, particularly around cybersecurity, that hasn't been touched yet. And that once it is, we'll get a lot of new developers and chief information security officers and people in compliance exposed to blockchain technology and really excited about it.
Very cool. And then since we're kind of running a little short on time, we still got a couple questions left. Like Vivi, you want to maybe tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've seen, because with Reuters, with all the interviews you've done, what's some of the best use cases you've seen for crypto right now that have the potential to be mass adopted? In your experience and the people you've interviewed, and there's been a lot.
Well, yeah, the adoption is really a big problem. So I would like to just come back to the media space that, like we mentioned, that Stimit. I think that's really, like I just would like to come back a little bit to, the outlook for media and blockchain. I really think that media has been, it's been changing a lot, but Ren was right that I think media needs to be disrupted in a big way, and the adoption is not happening yet. But I think if we could just be a little bit more patient and probably it's around the corner. I think blockchain can do a lot for media. For example, like I have worked in China for many years in media, and censorship is a problem. And if we could really have the adoption, in the media space with blockchain, I think not only we can verify the information and just like really wiping out the fake news issues, but also if we could put the information on blockchain and store the information out there and encrypt it, and there's no way that people can censor the information.
Can I just say something? And it is the end of a 2-day conference, and I think we're all conferenced out. But I think let's put the bullshit aside. You just asked a question about adoption. There is no crypto adoption. I only know of 3 use cases for crypto at the moment. The one is a peer-to-peer value transfer, but only for large amounts of value because the value costs a lot of money. The other one is this thing on Ethereum called an ICO, which is a smart contract way of raising capital. And the third use case for crypto that I know is speculation. And today I challenge anybody else in this room to say to me that there is an adoption of some other form of crypto that doesn't meet those 3 criteria, because I haven't seen it.
If I could add real quick, one of the things that I'm kind of surprised that nobody's mentioned it yet, but I think a huge opportunity that we're kind of missing out on is the gaming industry. One of the things that we're specifically working on is for example, I'll give you an example, we're working on a first-person shooter game similar to Halo or some of the first-person shooter games you're familiar with. Imagine you going in with your cryptocurrency, and every time somebody kills you in the game, your cryptocurrency is up for grab. I think this incentivizes not only competitive gaming, but it also draws people to cryptocurrency as well.
Yeah, I want to pick up on this. I think Ren is correct to call out the bullshit, and really that is not much adoption out there, but like people, I think everybody here has a faith in blockchain, and that's why we're here. But it's true that adoption hasn't, mass adoption is not happening yet, and I think what is interesting is after I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and investors, I think one thing I noticed, and also comparing to the internet era. It's always like media is very excited, ahead of the curve and reporting on, helping the hype and talking about, like, if you remember the internet age and talking about, pets.com and everything's going to be internet but it's a bubble. But internet is there to stay. I think it's the same thing. Media is very hot, and if you look at last year and this year, and there's so many blockchain media out there, crypto traders there, and so media is there to report on, giving people this future perspective and everything, but the adoption is not happening, so people are losing patience. They think that there's a gap between it. And then gaming is interestingly, a lot of, like one investor told me that really gaming is the place to look at, because gaming is the easiest place to adopt. Like, if you want to disrupt banking or the financial section, there's a lot of you're basically disrupting a lot of people's interest. But gaming is like the easier territory to enter, and you have a massive numbers of people to. So this is like a very interesting space to look at.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But speak to like what Ryan was talking about. Right now, we mostly have nothing but speculators in the space. Until we get past that, we're going to have this problem where we'll never have mass adoption until we have, I think, a stable coin. I didn't want to get too technical in this talk. I just wanted to keep it kind of, media based. But, I mean, you guys all have enough tech savvy to talk about stable coins. Do you think once we have something like that, and people start realizing that they can actually send digital currency, and it's not going to be, it's not going to cost them, $5-10 every time they send $1, or have that fear of missing out, from their currency going up or down? You think they'll be able to jump into gaming, be able to jump into media, like the Steemits of the world and things like that?
But our approach is wrong, and at the end of this month, Bitcoin is 10 years old.
Yep.
So we've got a 10-year-old technology in its current form, and in 10 years, if you compare the internet cycle, where the internet was 10 years after it launched, the internet was maybe a little bit behind where we are today. But don't forget that the internet didn't have the internet to drive its adoption. We have had all the luxuries of communication, of internet and social media, so we can spread things like wildfire. And yet 10 years after the Bitcoin white paper, we've got a couple of million accounts who with very little adoption. And again, I say to you, I think that as an industry, if we want to create mass adoption, our approach is wrong. We're building these complicated protocols, and we're expecting people to come to us to try and use these complicated protocols. I'll give you a very classic example. I'm a big fan of the prediction market platform, the Ogre. Yeah. I'm a big fan of what it can do. Have you ever tried to use it? You need to have a PhD in engineering to use it.
Yeah, you're jumping all over the point I always make, man. You need something that's blockchain that's as easy to operate as Facebook. You just hit the thumbs up button, it works.
Yeah, I really hope that. I really hope that now that the market is down and all the hot air is gone, and people can't raise money to build all these technical protocols and dApps, I really hope that we'll be a little bit more innovative and use this opportunity to be innovative to get real adoption of the blockchain technology, because we actually do have all the building blocks that we need now. We have the ability for IoT devices to pass money to one another. We have the ability to store things on a mobile phone wallet. We have the ability to swap between the value of tokens either through cross-chain protocols or through exchanges. I think for me, certainly this week is a point where we have to change the narrative. And the narrative is, we've been playing and blowing this hot air for enough time, and now for the next 12 months we have to focus on one thing, and that is getting 250, 300, 400 million users using the blockchain without them actually even knowing that they're using the blockchain.
Exactly. Cool. So Alessio, you want to jump in? And Jake, you guys, we haven't given you as much time as it seems, so why don't you guys tell us what your thoughts are, man?
Because the talk is about the future of media entertainment, I just wanted to touch on some things in that, because we're actually playing with a lot of the technologies that I believe are going to be major industry disruptors in their entertainment and media. Obviously, virtual reality, augmented reality, and volumetric video really changes the way that not only we produce content, but the way we consume it as well. And if you look at the current industry, as far as the big companies out there, Intel, Microsoft, Facebook, they're spending billions of dollars into hardware, future hardware generations that we will be starting to see in the form of glasses, headsets, and various devices like that. And I think it's important for us to bring blockchain, if we're going to be encouraging the adoption of blockchain, to start getting into some of these future technologies that are going to be moving forward, instead of so much focus on integrating in current things that are pretty much going to be left behind.
Awesome, man. Jake, what are you most excited about in blockchain, man?
Yeah, I think you mentioned 3 use cases, and I think there's a 4th. And I think that this is the first time in human history that we can put a piece of data on a chain and say with 99.99% certainty that on this date, this happened. The genesis block of the blockchain actually has in it a New York Times date for the banks being bailed out. So I think there's a lot that can happen in enterprise adoption as far as data integrity goes before we even have to have this mass consumer adoption. And a lot of that can happen in media too.
Awesome. Well, you know, it's great speaking with every single one of you. You know, it's been an honor and a privilege. Really appreciate everybody out there in the crowd. Big thanks to Ivan, Marina, Ross. You guys were awesome. Brian Brown. Thanks again, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless.